How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Agave and Cactus Talk. This is the first episode of 2026, or season 3. I guess we've been at this for 3 years now, which is interesting. I never thought I'd be podcasting for that long. Kind of just started this as like a little help for some of my clients, so I didn't have to keep repeating the same stuff, but stuff evolves. But today I wanted to talk about some of my favorite cactus or cacti, and those are the columnar cacti. And a lot of these cacti people really aren't familiar with, except if you're, say, a cactus collector, right? Probably the most famous columnar cactus would be San Pedro cactus, which is, if I remember correctly, Echinopsis pachinoi. And it's really hard to find a pure, they call them, EP, but, or PC. But these, San Pedro varieties that you see a lot in California are derivatives of those. So a lot of the time people call them cultivated pachinoi, which is kind of irrelevant for a lot of people, but it has to do with what we talk about often, which is that there's a lot of cloning and tissue culturing, and with a lot of these San Pedro in California, many of them have been propagated from similar plants and stuff, so a lot of it's cloned. But there is lots of original PC or Echinopsis pachinoi, or the San Pedro cactus here in California. You just got to really look for them. A lot of the times it's cultivators that started it directly from seed, so they're able to know it's more closely related to the stuff that's out in South America, right? So the columnar cactus, they first started coming to interest of me when I started collecting cacti, and the first one that I started with was, of course, San Pedro cactus. And, my family's background, we had cultivated lots of different opuntias, and which are the prickly pears, right? Or what we refer to as, the fruits, at least tunas in Mexico. There's hundreds of different varieties and hybrids and all that. But I had also been familiar with this one columnar cactus called garambullo. And garambullo is, let me see, what is that one? It's that blue myrtle cactus, they call it in, America. And if I remember correctly, that's Martello cactus geometrin, something like that. But those produce a small little blueberry-sized fruit that I was familiar with because, some of my family is from Guanajuato, and I knew of these berries because sometimes they'd bring them, or sometimes, we'd consume them in Mexico. And these blue myrtle cactus also grow in other states around Mexico, but in Guanajuato, they actually cultivate them. Like, there's farms of this shit. And people in America have a blue myrtle cactus, like, in a pot or in their garden, a couple feet tall. The ones that I've seen could be, 40, 50 feet tall, ginormous specimens, and producing, tons of this fruit every year. So, really productive. And that's kind of the first one that I wanted to talk to you about today, because this blue myrtle cactus, it's getting slept on, right? It's able to produce some really, really good fruit, and it's extremely drought tolerant. It's not the most cold hardy. A lot of the varieties are not hardy past 25 to 30 Fahrenheit, but there are a few that are tolerant to 15 or 20 Fahrenheit, which, luckily I found a few of those, and that's what I've got here on the farm. And I'll probably be long dead before those become trees like anything that exists in Guanajuato, because they're very slow growing cactus. But it is a long-term plant that is going to produce fruit for you every year. Even as a very, very young cactus, it'll still produce a couple handful of fruit for you, or a handful of fruit for you. And this myrtillo cactus, I like to think of these columnar much like trees, right? It's like they do grow a little slow, but like a fruit tree or a leguminous or vine or a nut tree, it gives you something, right? So it's giving me these blueberry-sized fruits every year, right? And every year it's locking in more carbon into itself, growing taller and taller, wider and wider, and that creates little microclimates for my plants to live. So much like a date tree or a palm, something that goes straight vertically up, a lot of these columnar cacti go vertically up, right? And a blue myrtle cactus, it'll pretty much form a nice trunk and then start to spread wide, if you trim it, accordingly. And that way you'll form kind of what looks like if you extend your hand or your arm out, and then you just have your hand out, kind of like if you're gripping an apple, right? And that's kind of what these trees look like, really sturdy trunk, and then they have, dozens of arms reaching for the sky, and they form this really cool kind of like plateau where the branches grow off of. But like I said, some of those specimens in Guanajuato could be 50, 60, 100, 130 years old. So I don't know if I'll ever see a tree like that on my property, but it's locking carbon in, it's locking water in, it's creating those microclimates, it's producing fruit. It's all Gucci. And the other thing is, a lot of these collectible cacti, people always want them all the time. Gardening is more and more making popular aloe, cactus, agave, bucraea, these families that are able to be included in xeriscapes and able to be in drought tolerant gardens or low maintenance gardens, or in many cases native gardens, like with a lot of the native opuntio or agave may grow, sell to a fair amount of native nurseries. And the one thing that I'm realizing between these columnar cactus that I have read about a lot in the not maracuya, what is that shit? Starts with an M. It's this giant, I forget the name of it right now, but it's this giant columnar cactus in Brazil, right? Let me just grab the name real quick. Okay, so I found the name. It's called mandacaru, something like that. So these columnar cactus, I had been studying a lot. Studying is maybe a funny word. Reading a lot about in research that had been done, and they were finding out that a lot of the desertification that was going on in this section of Brazil. If I remember correctly, it was like this really arid new desert forming in Brazil, and they were able to start to reverse some of that by introducing this mandacaru, and essentially you know, it would form this columnar cactus, and then little grasses would grow at the base, smaller, you know, ground-dwelling cactus, and different shrubs and trees would grow. And it reminded me kind of an ecosystem as well that I see a lot of in Jalisco, which is when you go to the cerro or to the, you know, to the mountains, you'll see a lot of cactus growing alongside trees with shrubs and grasses, and everything is a little ecosystem all working together, all beautiful, right? So I kind of wanted that to start to be recreated with a lot of these columnar cacti on the farm, right? Plants that will grow anywhere from, you know, 10 to 50 plus feet high, producing a little bit of shading, some microclimate, obviously locking in tons of soil, because these plants to establish need to throw down, you know, 4 to 6 plus feet of roots in these areas. And they do. You know, a lot of these columnar cactus that I have recycled over the years, they always have a really rough first year because obviously they have no roots. So they're having to establish these root systems. A lot of the times they'll, you know, start to dry out a bit or look real sad and yellow because of the sunburn they're used to being in beautiful Goldilocks fucking LA land where it's never dropping under 40 and always good humidity. So when I put them in the desert, they definitely suffer. But I give an example. This one field I recycled all these cactus from a home here in Lancaster. Tons of San Pedros, blue myrtle cactus, tons of different green columnar cactus that I don't even know the names of. But I know that this guy, when I went to go talk to him, he, you know, was a really, really advanced cactus hybridizer. And he showed me some stuff about hybridizing cactus, which I apply still today. And, you know, he was at the end of his career. I was at the beginning of mine. And I was telling him, yo, I'm going to recycle all your, you know, your cactus. Don't worry, you know, it's going to be dope. But he was trying to tell me as I was loading everything into my truck, like, yo, this is this one, this is that one. He had like to me, it looked like I just picked up 300 of the same San Pedro cactus, right? But as they started growing out, first off, not all 300 made it. Out of those 300, probably 80 to 90 made it. I'd say probably like a 30% success rate. But not bad off of dry farming. Like I literally just threw them in the soil. It was fucking summer. We got a little monsoon, and, you know, they had to establish right away with some cold rains and shit. It was a tough fucking establishment period for them. But many of them made it, and now off of those, I'm able to propagate, and they all make it, right? So I give an example. They'll yellow out, they'll get sad, they look like shit. The new growth, once it's established, beautiful as fuck, you know? Now those I could sell, right? So a lot of the, you know, today it's not just about blue myrtle cactus or San Pedro. I want to talk about, I think probably 5 or 6 of the columnar cactus that I have on the farm. But all of these columnar cactus, whether it's Mexican saguaro, Argentine saguaro, Peruvian apple cactus, San Pedro cactus, different echinopsis, different leucos or trichos or whatever the fuck you refer to many of these columnar cacti as. A lot of those, the new growth, you know, after they're all beat up and shit, I can sell. I can now take and propagate throughout my farm. And now I know that even from a young age, it's already accustomed itself, right? And this is something that it's really interesting because it's like plants adapt quicker than people think, than scientists and all this shit, because I see it with my own eyes, you know? Like, I'm telling you, it's like people, you know, you throw a greenhouse-grown columnar cactus into the Mojave Desert in summer, it don't matter if you're irrigating it every week. It's going to look like shit, okay? Now, you establish it over, like I'm doing a lot right now, in winter or fall. So by the time the spring and summer heat comes, it's looking good, right? And if it's cold tolerant to the max colds that you're going to get, it's not going to matter much. and it might not grow a lot. Focus on root growth during the winter and fall. But the point is, a lot of those columnar cactus are going to grow and adapt, and then the new, clones, you could say, are not having the yellowing. They're not having the drying out period, the 6 to 12 months of establishment. If I planted in the rainy season, it might take 3 to 4 months for them to have a handful of roots and be nice and established for a nice little young columnar, right? So my personal theories and shit is that a lot of these agave and cacti are adapting way quicker than we fucking have, than we give them credit for, right? Because if I give an example, a lot of these columnar cactus, I'm on the edge of their growing, right? Many of them die at 25 to 30, but a lot of them could be dropped an extra 10 degrees by weeding out the weeks, right? So it's like a lot of these cactus, I told you, say I planted 390 mate, right? From that one recycled batch from here in Lancaster, California. Well, some of them died because I didn't water them, right? They couldn't take the dry farming. Some of them died because of the cold. They couldn't take the cold. Some of them died once they were already established, once the heat came, right? So by the end of it, you're like, fuck, I lost 65% of my plants. That blows. But what am I left with? The fucking winners. The guys who could be dry farm, that could take the cold, that could take the heat, that could take the fucking 40-mile-an-hour winds every fucking week, right? That allows me now to propagate from those, and everyone fucking makes it. I'm not worried, is that guy gonna live? No, for sure gonna live, right? So to me, that's adaptation. It may be this is kind of my theory here. It's not that the plants are evolving. It's that the plants have, this really diverse DNA, okay? And different genes can be expressed through certain climatic factors that cause genotypic or phenotypic differentiations in expression. A lot of fancy fucking words for saying that shit just fucking changes when it's put in a different environment. And a lot of researches on plants like this in Agaveaceae family in Hesperoeuca whippley, right? I've talked to you about this in a podcast before, but it's like, you could plant a seed of any of the three subspecies, right? And depending on the local climate, which could be the wind, the sun, the cold, the water, different climatic factors, those seeds will pop out different subspecies. So you can plant subspecies A and get B, or plant subspecies B and get A or C, whatever the fuck the other combos are. You get me, right? I think a lot of that shit hasn't been studied in other plants and is applicable, and I think that research needs to be done on agave and cactus, because in evolution, they're more recent plants, cam plants, recently evolved. So it's one of Earth's, you could say recent updates, right? So it's like Earth has made a lot of crazy ass updates to plants, right? And the thing is that I think that agave and cactus have this ability that Hesperoeuca whippley was showing and demonstrating. So within the Agaveaceae family, I would fucking, if I had $1 million, I'd bet on red right here, right? And that the not the whole, but there's definitely many within the Agaveaceae family that that is happening with. And one that I've already said I think that is possibly happening with, based on my observations, is Agave utaensis. If you plant Agave nevadensis or Agave utaensis subspecies nevadensis, you can get subspecies utaensis, or you could get subspecies Zeborospina. The only one it doesn't apply to there that hasn't seen that observation is Kybensis. So, but Kybensis is the oldest one. So that's also a very interesting thing. But I got a little distracted here. What I was just trying to, have you guys understand is that these plants, if you're on the edges, don't give up. Many of them haven't been tested to where you're going to put them. In many cases, I'm putting the cactus and agave in the coldest or the hottest situation they've ever been in, or the driest situation they've ever been in. Many times I'm the first to cultivate them globally, which is pretty sad, honestly. I'm not a fucking huge farmer. I'm not the smartest guy, but still getting a lot of that done. So yeah, especially when I recycle plants, I'm not really caring. And then I propagate so much that I'm like, I'm fine with massive losses of plants as I've described it, because I just know that eventually over time I'm going to weed out the genetics that I need for my farm and the southwest of the United States needs, arid regions globally need. So that's more so what I'm focused on, prioritizing genetics to be a better agave that takes less resources. And ideally, I know that that's possible because, I know that that is possible because ideally I'm going to be trying to just copy nature, biomimicry. And I know that nature is always trying to update plants that use less and less resources so it could be more efficient. So, in these regions, right? So, it's going to work with nature instead of trying to fight it and allow it to, or try to speed up what it's already doing, right? Because then maybe it'll just really set in stone some genetics. But blue myrtle cactus, going back all the way to that cactus, not only can the small, branches and stuff be sold or replanted, you can also, they have very little spines, although they are pretty thick and long. No homo for my homies who listen to this. My God. But then, so they're these big old spines, and you can easily trim them, and you could consume this cactus, in different ways. Now, I wouldn't be the one to tell you whether or not it can alter your state of mind, but I will say that many of the columnar cactus have mind-altering chemicals within their skin. So, a lot of people, for instance, grow and consume San Pedro cactus, but that is not the only columnar cactus that has that ability. It's just relatively the most known, I'd say, because it got really popular. Now everybody's trying to fucking do ayahuasca and shit. Everybody's on some shit, man. Everybody's trying to be a crackhead. But, one thing they don't tell you about ayahuasca is that it was usually consumed in tandem with San Pedro cactus. So it had very, very deep religious significance for, Amazonian tribal people. And, I don't think stuff like that should be abused. But it's something you should know about, because if you got, teenage kids and you got a giant cactus collection, they're on YouTube, and they might try to fucking cut a branch, and, it's just something to be watchful for. So, or you never know, it's not a plant you want to put in. A lot of people, I see their columnar cactus are in the front yards and stuff, and I'm just like, whew, you're just asking to get your shit chopped up at night by some of these, cactus poachers, basically. They jack people's fucking cactus out in yards and shit. And it's not only yards, unfortunately. I mean, even the Huntington, world famous Huntington Garden, has dealt with cactus poachers. And I mean, a lot of that place is like under fucking 24/7 security and surveillance. So I'm like, shit, doesn't really show much hope for some of our gardens, right? Because uh, people are stealing from some of the most sophisticated ones. Saying that though, if you have a cactus collection that has many columnar cactus, or you have a farm with many columnar cactus like me, and you're cultivating them, make sure to have some fencing, some dogs, some security stuff. You don't want people rolling up and just jacking your shit. But I got sidetracked there. What I was trying to tell you before I felt like to mention that, was that, obviously you can eat it, and there's ways to prepare it. Many of these columnar cactus, like blue myrtle cactus, the other ones that you can eat as well are Peruvian apple cactus. And let's see, a lot of the other ones you really wouldn't want to eat. Mexican saguaro, you wouldn't want to eat. Argentine saguaro, you really wouldn't want to eat. Let's see, the San Pedro and Echinopsis families, many of those, I've never tried eating them, but people tell me you could eat them, But here's the thing, really, where I wouldn't really waste my resources eating them if I had lots of branches and cuttings and I've fulfilled my planting obligations. Really easy to grind those fuckers up in a little portable wood chipper, and the goats fucking love it, man. Spine or no spine. If you got sheep or cow, that's where you can come in and grow some of that Peruvian apple cactus, because you're not going to have any major spines, right? Same with some of the San Pedros and Echinopsises. The Argentine and Mexican saguaro, I wouldn't give it to sheep and cows. But goats, they'll fucking murder that shit, even if I didn't grind it up. But if you grind it up, they'll just consume it much quicker, easier to digest on their systems and stuff, right? But I'm trying to think here anything else with blue myrtle cactus. Really, like I said, really slow growing fucker, but it's worth it for the carbon locking potential. It's worth it for the water locking, the microclimates, for all that stuff. And really, this could be applied to most of these columnar cactus, right? But let's go on to the next one, just because, I always get distracted. I don't want to make this fucking 2-hour podcast talking about 5 plants. But the second one, right, that I've been mentioning here is the Peruvian apple cactus, right? This one, I'm amazed it still hasn't been commercialized in the United States. It's really crazy to me, because look at this example, right? The whole cactus could be consumed. The whole cactus could be foraged to, as I said, every animal in the livestock chain, from pigs to cows, sheep, what do you call it, bison or goats. But the fruits as well, unlike a lot of these other fruits, like, so the San Pedro fruits, really fuzzy. The Mexican saguaro, Argentine saguaro, really spiky fruits. And when I say fruits, they're like, imagine yourself a little prickly pears, right? Now the Myrtillo cactus, geometrins, or the garambullo, as indigenous Mexicans call it. The garambullo and the Peruvian apple cactus share that their fruits have very low spine and can just be eaten like that. Like, you could grab a Peruvian apple cactus, or you can grab a blue myrtle cactus fruit and just eat it like that. Open it up with your teeth, right? Great. The blueberry-sized fruits from the Myrtillo cactus, the Peruvian apple cactus fruits will be the size of, some of those fuckers could be big, man. I mean, they could be the size of an apple. Maybe that's why they called them Peruvian apples. I've always, theorized, but yeah, it's kind of weird because they're actually not from fucking Peru. So that's their Latin name, if I remember correctly, is Cereus peruvianus. But it's part of, I think, like, Argentina, if I remember correctly. I don't know. It's part of some of these South American forests, right? And once again, going back to the thing that cactus in its natural ecosystem is doing much what we're doing on the farm, growing with agave, growing with shrubs, with trees, with grasses and ground covers and shit. And that Peruvian apple cactus is doing the same thing. You know, in the pictures I've seen it of in the wild, it's on really rocky landscapes with lots of other plants around it, growing real tall. And you know, once again, it's going to do, like as I was mentioning with the Myrtillo cactus, provide nice little carbon locking, water locking, microclimate boosting to start younger plants. You know, a lot of these plant starts that I've been putting, you know, I've been more and more so putting them under trees and closer to larger established plants because I'm just realizing that they do much better. You know, if they're out in the open wind, sun, cold, then they're not going to do as well. So I'm starting to use my vertical growing crops, like trees, shrubs, taller agave, taller cactus to basically shade out the younger stuff. So by the time, you know, the younger stuff comes out, then, you know, I can easily move it and stuff. But Peruvian apple cactus, one if you remember, I used to have around 2 acres of it, but then I sold it all, and that original Peruvian apple cactus was all recycled too. It just came from a giant tree in, if I remember, Avocado Heights. And I just seen a guy pile up a whole fucking bunch of 4 or 5 foot branches on the side of the road, and I asked him, "Can I have them? I want to fucking, you know, farm these. I know what they are." He's like, "Go for it, bro." You know. And then I loaded him, and he's like, "I got the whole fucking tree in the back if you want to cut it down." And I'm like, he saw I had my arborist gear, and I'm like, "Let's fucking go, bro. I'm down." Cut that whole shit down, brought it all here. It was growing amazing, and I sold all of them. You know, several years later, the price was right. But now I'm regrowing a whole bunch of them, and I have different varieties of them. And the Peruvian apple cactus, there's bluer ones, there's greener ones. I'm talking about the actual plant. Now, there's monstrose varieties, which are kind of like mutated, twisty versions of it. But there, in between those three, or four, say, Peruvian apple cacti, there's dozens of different fruit varieties that have been hybridized and breeded and stuff. So that is one that the collectors are like doing really well with, and I just can't wait until what happens with dragon fruit happens, which is like we had 2-3 bullshit dragon fruit varieties they jack from Mexico growing in Southeast Asia and shit, and then now you're seeing dragon fruit farms pop up in California, and they're growing hundreds of different fucking varieties of dragon fruit. It's amazing, all these different flavors that shit can produce, right? And the every single cactus I'm mentioning today from the columnar cactus could be breeded, hybridized, and you have dozens of different fruits come from it as well. A lot of people don't realize that's what happened with tunas or the prickly pears. Like, there's probably hundreds of Opuntia wild varieties that produce certain fruits, right? But I'll give an example. Like, Opuntia ficus indica is the most commercialized and hybridized variety, and it produces really large fruits. I have spineless varieties here with really large fruits, but you know, those were bred by California famous you know, hybridizer Burbank, right? So it's like I'm trying to do like Burbank, and I'm trying to take these native California Opuntia littoralis, Opuntia ficanta, and take them from being, you know, a golf ball sized fruit to hopefully a apple sized fruit, right? Really juicy, really great fruits. They're just really full of seed and you know, lots of spine. So I want to lower the spine. And the seed, to be honest with you, I don't really want to touch too much because I think seed oils is going to become a grand industry to be selling into for cactus farmers. And I think eventually I'm going to be drying the fruit and a lot of the seeds, taking them out to press into seed oils. So I don't want to hybridize out a lot of the seed actually. But I may on the side make seedless varieties or something like that. We'll see. But it has to be something that's not GMO or lab. I'm not about that GMO and lab bullshit. I mean, you know, if you count the lab hybrids, as I've mentioned in the Agave Genetics Hybrid podcast, there's probably like 15,000 fucking agave hybrids. But show me 100 of them that have had any significance in this world, right? You could probably point to the Sisal one. You could point to fucking, you know, that really nice hybrid right now in Brazil. You could probably point to Blue Glow in California. I mean, there's very few fucking hybrids that have gained global notoriety or been cultivated and commercialized, right? So don't kid yourself there. But yeah, Peruvian apple cactus, very drought tolerant. Not the most cold hardy. I think realistically you could say it could take 16 to 18. Under that, you want to start tarping it. Under 20, I would shade tarp it. Under the 16, frost tarp or snow tarp. So shade tarp under 20, 25 really to maximize, or to minimize leaf damage and prioritize fruit. Because the other thing too is in a really hot summer day, those fruits could just blow up open, burst open. So what you want too is to have like what they do with the dragon fruit, to have little, shade bag or little shade tarp bags that you can put over the fruit, and so it's not getting so what we call mayugado in Spanish, all fucked up. But yeah, the what do you call it? Blue myrtle cactus, which is what do you call it? Myrtillocactus geometrans, and then Cereus peruvianus, and cousin or subspecies and other similar Cereuses are great. A lot of the Pilosoceriuses, right, are also really amazing fruit producers. Here I have Pilosocerius azurius, and those produce really, really amazing fruits as well. Very drought tolerant. The problem I'm having with them is that they're not as cold hardy. So under 25, I really need to do a lot of maintenance and tarp them like crazy so that they can live. They have a lot of spines. So while the fruit is amazing, I am thinking maybe I can hybridize them with other types of similar cactus to try to get some of that spine out, man, because I think that's a slept-on cactus that just needs a little work for it to do well, and it's so drought tolerant, more so than Peruvian apple cactus and blue myrtle cactus, which is saying something because those are both very drought tolerant plants. And Pilosocerius azurius grows very, very tall, and it grows very fast. So blue myrtle cactus and grows, I would say, slow to medium. Peruvian apple cactus, I would say medium to fast. Pilosocerius azurius, I would say medium to fast. But the Pilosocerius as well doesn't, take frost well, even if it's not under 25. What's another thing? So yeah, I generally limit them to the shade houses, but if I was in coastal California, more Southern California, that's more urban, San Diego, LA, on south of the LA forest, not the Antelope Valley. Those areas, you could definitely grow some Pilosocerius and farm it, and fucking amazing plant. Santa Barbara, amazing fucking place. I always think about Santa Barbara. I went to school out there, but that place could fucking grow anything, man. It's like LA and Santa Barbara. It's like, it's a shame they became some of the California metropolises because it's prime time ag land, man. But anyways, so those three cacti, really great columnar cacti. Another one that I'm growing is called Mexican saguaro, which is Patchy Cereus Pringley. I call it the Pringles, because it's like Pringley or something like that. It's its Latin name, but call it the Pringles cactus. Now this agave has a little more history, I would say. Well, here's the thing. I don't know about Peruvian apple cactus history because I'm not South American, or some of these Pilosocerius. I told you a little bit about the blue myrtle cactus because I'm Mexican, right? Well, this Mexican saguaro I can tell you a little bit about because I'm Mexican. So I know that indigenous peoples here in the Southwest, and in Mexico used this to make types of fermented wines and drinks and spirits, and ate the fruit, made candies, made dried fruits, made all types of products out of the fruits. Okay, they used the skins, or the large branches, for bowls and different cooking utensils, like a pot or something. Um, they utilized the whole cactus. The spines were utilized for sewing and knitting. They would feed, or sorry, they wouldn't feed. They would eat the cactus, boiled up and chopped up. Some of the younger, more greener parts of it. Really interesting cactus, but Mexican saguaro is one that I would love to get more and more of. They're just really expensive. Got a few of them here, and my intentions with them is just making what us Mexicans have been making for thousands of fucking years. Some fucking Pachysarias Pringly wine. And I'm gonna just, take one out the book of the indigenous there and just keep, don't fix it if it ain't broke. I've tried some of this wine from the fruits of Mexican saguaro, and it's fucking amazing. So, it convinced me enough to plant some of them, even though they're expensive as fuck. My God, I mean, like, some of these 10-inch, 11-inch young cactus could be, $65. It's ridiculous. But I went out one day and just spent like $1,000 on them. I think I got like 20 of them. They're growing great. Some better than others. Some are fattening up and growing faster than others. That one I would say it's slow to medium growing. Extremely drought tolerant. Once established, if you plant in the rainy season, you should be golden, like most of the stuff we talk about that we're dry farming. But let's see, what else? That's one of the cacti that in the wild is vying for the oldest specimens. So some of these Pachysarias Pringly could be over 200 to 300 years old, and they don't really have tree rings, so they have to estimate, which means that some of them may be actually double or triple that age if we have miscalculated, right? And so that's, you could say, debatable oldest tree, right? But as far as tallest wild tree, or tallest wild cactus, sorry, I've been calling them trees. They look like fucking trees, man. But it's a plant and it's a cactus. So these guys could grow 60 feet tall, man, 65 feet tall. You'll be long fucking dead before you see that. But they grow so tall, man. And, for you to get a picture of Mexican or Argentine saguaro, picture very much the Southwest saguaro here in the United States, right? I would love to cultivate that one, by the way. And there's ways to do it from seed, but there's no way someone's going to sell me a 1 or 2 foot saguaros for something that's reasonable. Not to say you can't buy them. They're legal to purchase if they're legally permitted and removed from owners' properties. So, I mean, you could buy some saguaros, but they're really, really expensive, and they're endangered. I don't want people to come and try to just come on my farm and jack the saguaros like they're jacking them out the national parks. So, Mexican and Argentine saguaro, 2 great, more affordable, faster growing species that produce really amazing fruit. And I will say an honorable mention to that fucking American saguaro, because just like the Mexican and the Argentine saguaro, traditional indigenous people have been making, products out the fruit of it forever, and different wines and ferments and stuff, and really useful plants. The problem is that sometimes, like I give the example, to me, the way to get, a lot of people to get in, how do I explain this? Give me one moment. The way that I would get people to stop poaching the United States saguaro would be to massively propagate them by the fucking tens of millions. Cultivate them, farm them, repatriate them into the wild responsibly, right? from wild collected seed, permitted and you got some ecologists, wherever the fuck you need out there, supervising your bitch ass. And then you start that genetics and you reintroduce it as sterile as you fucking can, or as close to the environment sterility as you can, right? Or lack of sterility, we shall say. And that's how you fucking stop poaching, because if the plant becomes so fucking cheap, nobody will want it. The only reason someone's going and jacking a 3-4 foot saguaro is because they made it illegal, and some fucking Chinese guy will buy it for $5,000. Now, if that saguaro was cultivated, you'd have the case of, I give an example, some of these 3-4 foot Argentine saguaros I've sold for $300-400 that I've cultivated, and I cultivated them in a few years from young plants, or I sold some young plants that I cultivated from seed, and that keeps pressure, for example, off the Pachysarius pringli in the deserts of the United States and Mexico. It keeps pressure off of, actually I'm not sure if it's available actually in the Southwest. It might only be Mexican deserts, Mexican saguaro. Don't quote me on that. If I remember correctly, it's in both countries. But anyways, takes pressure off the wild stuff, right? So people aren't poaching them, trying to fucking resell them for thousands, trying to destroy ecosystems to just go take that one tree. That's what happens with poachers, right? They go in their ATVs or their fucking 4x4 trucks. They destroy the whole ecosystem, make a fucking whole ass road to get to this one plant or whatever they saw hiking, and they fucking sell that shit, illegally. Well, it's like, we've explained this example of golden barrel cactus countless times, right? It's like you had the Mexicans illegally selling it, collecting it, selling it to Americans, Europeans, Asians that were really rich, and they took that all, and they put it in their collections. Well, until some Californians said, you know what, that's just really easy to grow. Let me just grow like 10 million of those fuckers. Now, every nursery in their mama got fucking golden barrel cactus up the yang, all right? They got thousands and thousands and millions of them. Now they're so cheap, anybody who has a garden can afford one. And most people who have cactus, it's one of the first they buy, right? You go buy one at fucking Home Depot for like $6, right? Also, by the way, we've talked about it, great fruiting cactus. Point being, though, my way of getting the American saguaro back to stability or better populations, or to would be to cultivate it through the nursery and the farm trade, and a lot of these keystone species like saguaros, like give another one, like these polycephalus, Echinacea cactus polycephalus, the Joshua trees, these keystone species, right? We need to start diversifying their genetics, because we have no idea what the fuck we're doing to the planet and what the climate's going to look like in 100 years. People are saying, oh, the Joshua tree is going to die or whatever the fuck. We don't even know what it's going to look like in 100 years. I remember my climate change classes, and those prediction models have almost every fucking data point you can imagine in the world, from soil to water to humidity to everything. Trillions and Googles of fucking data, like hundreds of zeros, right? And they still can't fucking accurately predict a few years into the future. So that's bullshit that they're saying, oh, this guy 20, 30 years from now going to be dead, with the current data we have now. But stuff is accelerating. So, point is, a lot of these species aren't going to be in existence even if we reverse all of the CO2 that's in the air right now. We need to start diversifying the genetics, okay? And creating new genetics that could potentially serve as a insurance policy for the Joshua tree, for the American saguaro, different things like that, right? Even the Mexican saguaro, right? I'm glad it's being cultivated like crazy, because now it allows me to have the potential to hybridize it and stuff like that. So, say a plague affects it in the wild and destroys the populations, I can now reintroduce those, new genetics, see what happens, right, in this new climate in the world. But yeah, Mexican saguaro, I mean, man, really beautiful cactus as well. I just love them. I love how they look. They're so puffy and beautiful and perfect looking. When they're young, they look like a little gumdrop or something, man. They're so cute. Sorry, nerding out about those. But amazing fruit, as I mentioned. You can sell it raw. You can make seed oils. You can sell the dried fruits, dehydrated. So many ways to make some money with the fruit. What I'm trying to just get you to understand is that cacti aren't only prickly pears, right? Like, I tell people, like, they're like, oh, there's like so many prickly pears. I'm like so lost. And I'm like, just focus on what's in front of you, dude. Because when you look at the cactus family, whew, dude, I mean, you know, one of my favorite families is the Cereus family. Within the Cereus family, there is probably hundreds of different species and subspecies that all produce viable fruit that could be commercialized and productive. And I'm just over here like, fuck, I don't even know what, like, to farm sometimes, because I could put 500 acres of garamboyo. I could put 500 acres of fucking Mexican saguaro, Argentine saguaro, a Peruvian apple cactus, a fucking Pilosocereus azureus, of any of those, and they would all hit. So, which leads me to why I like to think of my farm much like a garden and mix everything all together, because I would like to harvest a little of everything, right? And, you know, you gotta be smart, right? I always explain this one farm that I learned from in Pasadena. I never knew them personally, but I would watch them on YouTube and learn from them that way, right? So they were an eighth of an acre in Pasadena, making over $100,000. So that, if you do the, you know, the math or whatever, right? It's like they're making $800,000 an acre. And you got other farms, 1,000-acre farm in fucking Kansas, buttfuck Kansas, making $500 with subsidies for their acre of corn. So they may make $500,000 on 1,000 acres, while some fucking really diverse farm that's vertically integrated, marketing their own shit, distributing their own shit, growing their own shit, can be making millions with a super small acreage. So at the end of the day, I ain't trying to be out there like fucking some of my sworn enemies here in the California agave industry. They got tens of thousands of acres. I pretty much got in my head that I'm going to probably cap at around 1,000 acres in California. And my general rule of thumb has been that 90% of it I will maintain wild, which means that if I want to farm 1,000 acres, I have to have 9,000 acres that I keep wild. So probably won't get to that 1,000 acre mark for a while that I actually farm. But right now, there's plans in the works to try to get, you know, around 100 to 200 acres online within the next decade. So many of that, hopefully, we could do in the next few years. And over time, it'll just be developing and shit, right? But I'm going to just take a quick break real quick. I got to take the goats in, and then I'll get back to this podcast. But just so I can catch this quickly and break and remind myself, I was talking about Mexican saguaro. Alright, I'll be back right now. Alright, we're back. Just took a little water break. Whew, goats tire me out. Worked an 18-hour day yesterday, and then walking them 5-6 miles every day gets to me sometimes. But yeah, going back to Mexican saguaro, right? I really like a lot of these columnar cactus, because I mentioned many of them get anywhere from 10 to, like say the blue myrtle cactus, many of those can get, 15, 20 feet tall. Some of them that are slightly mature, maybe 10 feet tall. But then a lot of these other columnars, they may even get up to, 50, 60 feet tall, right? So it's really cool to have them in your farm or in your garden landscape, because they're going to be, as I was mentioning earlier, much like a palm and grow straight up, which means you get to use your space a lot more efficiently, right? So it's like the trunks of these cacti trees, you could say, can be in sometimes just a 1 by 1 foot square. And above them, they can form a canopy, sometimes 10 feet, in circumference, or 20 feet in circumference. May take a really long time, as I mentioned. You may be dead as fuck, but I'm the one that likes to think, I'm planting a lot of this shit for the next gen, and they'll get to enjoy it, right? Like, there wouldn't be those ginormous garambullos if, someone's great-grandpa didn't put that shit in the ground, right? There was probably some wild ones, and I mean, the wild ones, they're all over, right? Like, say, Guanajuato, but there's, as I mentioned, whole farms of it, like, in rows, right? And I'm also not the hugest fan of that, right? I like the fact that they took it out the wild and they said, wow, this is a really useful plant. We're going to cultivate it. Let's fucking fill up a farm of it. I like that part. The part I don't like a lot of the times when they do this shit, like in the case last 20 years, let's say last 15 years, I've seen in Mexico, or maybe it's just as I became an adult, I noticed it. Now people are starting at a small scale to cultivate pitayas in Mexico, which is, what is pitayas? So pitayas, I couldn't grow here. It is not cold hardy at all. I've tried shade tarping it. I can only limit it to the greenhouse, which means I can't really cultivate it. So I grow some from seed, and I grow those out for other farmers, for instance, in Santa Barbara or Northern California or San Diego area, like nurseries that I may sell to. But so the pitaya's Latin name is I don't remember. Oh, Stenosarius tuberri, right? So they call it in English. Its nickname is organ pipe cactus. And unfortunately, that nickname's been applied to several of these columnar cactus because they kind of grow in formations that make them look like an organ pipe, right? It'll have a whole bunch of little columns, very, very closely spaced, like an organ pipe, right? Like the musical instrument. But these particular Stenosarius tuberri, and once again, like, I don't know if you're getting the pattern here, but Stenosarius, Pilososarius, Pachysarius, Sarius. The Sariuses, man, they're legit. But anyways, so Stenosarius tuberri, right? The pitaya. While I can't grow it, again, like the American saguaro here for fruit production, I believe, a very honorable mention. People are growing it now in Mexico, as I mentioned, at a small scale, and they're growing, the garambullos and stuff. But going back to my previous point, sorry, we're going all over the place. What I don't like is that they'll do a monoculture. So it'll just be, 2-3 acres of just only columnar cacti, very closely trimmed, of pitayas, right? Stenosarius tuberri, or of garambullo, right? Myrtillocactus geometrans, right? Or of dragon fruit. Everybody's got the same way to grow dragon fruit on that one fucking little stake and then a little square top at 6 feet tall. I mean, I'm not saying it's not the best way to grow, but the fact that everybody's doing it, no one is questioning it, like being like, yo, let me try to figure out my own way to do it, I don't know, man. To me, I feel like the dragon fruit could be grown a lot like a vineyard. It's a fucking vine, dude. It's a fucking vine, and we're growing it like a tree. Okay, very weird because they grow it. Well, I guess not unprecedented, right? I mean, there's cherimoya, but that's a vegetable, right? They grow it as a vine, and they could pick it under a trellis system. But even that, like, give me that for dragon fruit. I'd be down. I've built those systems out of passion fruit systems. Like, in Silver Lake in the LA area, I've built for clients, pergolas, right? Real nice 15 by 15 or 20 by 20s. And then I'll do little, 20-foot strips, but then they'll be like 2 inches wide, and I'll space them 1 inch wide. So it provides like some shade and still allows vines to grow through it. And I'll fill that bitch up with grapes or passion fruit. And my clients could literally pick them from, like, they just step on top of their table and boom, grab them. Like, they're just right there. Sometimes they'll hang so low that they could just grab them, But the point is, why is no one trying to grow dragon fruit in another way? That's very surprising to me. But anyway, same shit here in America. Dragon fruit farms. Monocultures, bro. What the fuck is this shit? Show me the, and sorry, I was trying to help a goat out. The goats had circles, or the dogs had circles. But what I was getting at is, show me the group of indigenous people that were consuming dragon fruits. And by the way, dragon fruit is pitahaya with a H. And pitaya, the Stenocereus tuberi, often confused for dragon fruit, is pitaya without the H. Okay? I don't know how many times I gotta repeat that shit to fucking Americans, man. But, anyways, the monoculture is bullshit. Because it usually means weak genetics, lots of spraying, lots of tilling, lots of tractor use, and lots of labor use. Which, we're not a fan of any of that bullshit here. So, I like that they're like, okay, yeah, our ancestors are dope. They were eating garambullos, pitayas, like all this shit. Let me try to cultivate it. But then they go and fucking no inspiration from the garambullos in the wild, the pitayas in the wild, the pitahayas in the wild, right? Where they're growing with shrubs and trees and whole ass ecosystem. They're like, boom, let me fucking till out my whole fucking farm's ecosystem and soil, destroy all the soil, destroy all the plants, destroy all the food for all the pests that are gonna fuck with my shit once I plant my shit. And then you got a system of monoculture that you're having to only maintain with high inputs. That's fucked. That is fucked. And, unfortunately, the biggest growers of dragon fruit, as I mentioned, are Southeast Asian countries. And don't think I'm against Asians or anything like that. I don't give a fuck who grows this shit. I like them. I like pitahayas from multiple places. But I'm not ignorant to the fact that a pitahaya coming from a small farm, for instance, there may be a polyculture in Mexico, that pitahaya may be $10 a pound. And the fucking, $3 a pound that's coming from Vietnam, no offense, I know is sprayed. I know is maintained by artificial lighting, which ain't good for nobody. It's destroying a lot of, the natural rhythm of pretty much that whole ecosystem. It's maintained by tractor use, maintained by very low wage labor, right? So, point being that if Mexicans don't get ahead of trying to grow a lot of these columnar cacti, if United States farmers don't get ahead behind growing a lot of these columnar cacti, I mentioned many of these columnar cacti are from South America. Brazil is one of the biggest agricultural powerhouses in the world. The fact that there are very few established columnar cactus farms in Brazil, for instance, of Peruvian apple cactus or of mandacaru, is insane to me. because they're fucking destroying their whole ecosystem planting soy. But they're like, fuck Mandakaru? The shit that I told you earlier in the podcast is helping save their ecosystem from desertification? Come on now. So wouldn't it be a beautiful fucking world if one day we saw a farm in Mexico that had pitahayas, that had pitayas, that had garambullo, that had Mexican saguaro, that had, you know, making coloncha, that had fucking, you know, the pilosoceria. Like that'd be sick, bro. That'd be sick. You know, these are our plants as Mexicans. And if we don't develop them, another country will. I've said that 1,000 times with agave, you know. Like, the fact that a newbie farmer like me, right, at 21, said, I see a way to grow all these different agave and cactus species that nobody is growing. And I was one of the first to commercialize many of them. It saddens me that no one fucking tried. No one else tried. They were just content with the status quo. Right? That saddens me, to be honest, as a Mexican. Like, that there was, you know, no one else fucking trying to do what I was trying to do. And now there is. I will say that is the positive in this. People listen to this podcast, I mean, very small group of motherfuckers, but y'all actually get shit done. And that's why I keep making the fucking podcast. Because people reach out to me and they say, yo, bro, listen to this one. This is how I applied it. Now we're killing it, and boom, boom, boom. And I'm like, shit, I'm going to bring another one out. But, yeah, you know, polyculture of cacti, like, that's what we're doing here, man. You know, people, they know me a lot for the agave, just because that's getting popularized now, but I've been doing both forever. And the cacti, I'm not only growing dozens of different opuntias, I'm growing, you know, 24 different columnar cacti, many of them different types of cereuses, right? And I really am excited for the future of these, right? Like I give an example. When I look at Altman plants down in San Diego, they got monoculture fields of fucking, you know, I don't even fucking know. I estimate 50,000 golden barrel cacti. And they're growing these out small age, and they're like, yo, we want to put these in different nurseries and put them all over the place. The fact even fucking Altman hasn't thought of putting a fucking golden barrel cactus field and fucking farming the fruit out when they know this shit's super high priced in Mexico and even illegal because of that. Like golden barrel cactus fruit in Mexico, not only is it illegal to get the cactus now because it got poached almost to extinction, so Mexicans can't have the cactus, many of them, in many places, but the actual fruits, if you possess the fruits or if you sell the fruits, it's illegal. That's why they're so high priced, because they've been used traditionally in Mexican cuisine for a long time and Mexican medicine, right? But the fact that there's, I would say maybe, I don't know if there's dozens, but say there's at least a dozen companies like Altman Plants growing, you know, tens of thousands of a golden barrel cactus, of a Pilosocereus azurius, of a San Pedro fruiter, and none of them have thought to farm this shit. That shit wild, bro. That shit is fucking wild to me. Like, I swear there's no creativity left in the world. People are like, oh yeah, he's gonna take over. It might, man, because nobody wants to fucking think no more. Everybody just wants to take people's fucking word at 100. You know, I've told you 1,000 times, listen to my shit openly, learn from it, but question everything I say too, right? I might have misread some shit, you know? I might have misunderstood some shit. I'm a, you know, you could say, good consultant in agave and cactus. I've started many farms of it. I've sold lots of plants and helped many farms develop. But that don't mean that I know everything or I can't make a fucking error. You know what I mean? People call me out on my shit time to time, and I'm like, oh yeah, motherfucker got a point. But yeah, Columnar Cacti, man. I forgot, how I got on that track there, but the point I was trying to make is right. There's lots of small Mexican farms popping up of Columnar Cacti, but what I'm not seeing is the creativity in going back even further to their roots and starting the polyculture, right? And people say, oh, agriculture started, they say this amount in time, right? I actually think that's debatable now as a historian, right? Because they say, okay, this is the classic theory, right? They say, agriculture started when they started farming in the Fertile Crescent, fucking 10,000 BC, right? 10,000 years ago, or 12,000 years ago. Well, not really, man, because now we're finding out the Amazon, right? I've talked about this before. The Amazon, the Northern California forest, all these forests throughout California. Indigenous people throughout the world were taking out plants and putting shit that they liked every fucking where. People were like, wow, the California forests are really a food forest. Wow, the Amazon is really a food forest. Nature didn't do that shit. Well, I guess nature technically did, because we're nature, and nature made us, and we did it, right? But humans modified these ecosystems, right? Like I mentioned it many times, but when 80% of the fucking food that the Native American, weird terminology, that the indigenous Californians, right, that these tribes ate, 80% of that diet was fucking acorns. And people question why the fuck this state is full of oak trees. Why it's our state tree, right? It's actually the USA tree. And that's because there was a lot of fucking natives around here planting that shit everywhere. Because they're like, if we plant this everywhere, we got food everywhere. And the coolest shit about that, oak is one of the most diverse families of trees. Much like agave, there's hundreds of them. Lots of genetic diversity. It took over the whole fucking continent. You could go into Mexico, bunch of fucking oaks. I actually think Mexico is the biodiversity center of the Quercus, or the oak family, if I'm not mistaken. But point being, all these ecosystems were modified by humans, right? So the common history thing there is, agriculture started this way, because they see agriculture as being, okay, they went from hunter-gatherer to now they have, animals and livestock, and they have this livestock plowing the land, and they're planting into the land very organized, right? Very European, A, B, and C, checks and balances, and, all right. But here's the thing. The Amazonian tribes, the United States natives, the Mexican tribes, these fools were out in their ecosystems modifying them for probably tens of thousands of years. And they were taking out a tree they didn't like, right? Putting a tree they liked. Taking out a shrub they didn't like. This fucking shrub over here killed little fucking McQueexley on Tuesday. Let's take that shit out and maybe plant an oak so his kid could eat. I tell this story to a lot of people, but historians, especially or botanical historians, right? They know 99% of almond trees used to fucking be toxic. The fact that we eat almonds is like amazing. Why? Because that means that so many people died to have almonds, man. Like in the history of humans. Like a guy had to walk up to the tree and eat that and die. And they were like, dude, fuck that tree, cut that shit down. And then they eventually found almonds that people would consume and not die from. And then they didn't chop those down, and those are the ones we have. But point is, for me, farming doesn't mean very organized, tractor-based, nice row system. I've mentioned it 1,000 times, but think of your farm like a garden, like an ecosystem. We are ecosystem farming here, you know, using tech, using traditional ecological knowledge, indigenous knowledge, right? And that knowledge, as I mentioned, probably say from 100,000 BC to 10,000 BC, these motherfuckers were modifying everything, man. And they were, as I mentioned, taking out, you know, trees that were toxic or they didn't like, or, you know, were habitat for predators that they didn't like, right? And putting stuff that they would be allowed to you know, cultivate or harvest, right? To me, as a historian, I'll tell you what, that's fucking cultivation, bro. Because look, now I'm realizing I don't need to take out all my shit here, right? I don't need to clear everything. I don't need to I could literally go into a brand new virgin ecosystem, take out that 10 little 20% of dead crops, plant my agave and cactus in all the openings, and have the farm right on top of the ecosystem, improving the ecosystem, and the ecosystem improving my farm, right? That's what the natives did. That's where I got the fucking idea, bro. I didn't make this shit up. And they were doing that, as I mentioned, for tens of thousands of years. To me, that's farming, right? Because they were cultivating the land. They knew what to plant. They knew what to take out, much like a farmer would do with his ecosystem farm. They knew they needed to maintain the ecosystem. They knew they needed shrubs. They knew they needed grasses. They knew they needed ground cover. They knew they needed series of trees. Level 1, level 2, level 3 canopy trees, right? They knew how all that worked in tandem. And we still call them uncivilized or savages. These motherfuckers had a way greater understanding of science than 99% of soil scientists, 99% of farmers, 99% of fucking professors out there. To me, these modern day fools are the savages trying to do monoculture. They're the uncivilized ones. Because in 100,000 years, they haven't fucking learned the ways, right? That system was maintained for 100,000 years plus. Potentially even further. I'm on the lower range of estimation now, right? In 100 years, industrial, tilling, chemicals, synthetic chemicals, tractor, agriculture has almost depleted all of our soils, all of our nutrients, is one of the leading contributors to climate change when it should be the fucking opposite. It should be the fucking solution. Farmers should be locking in through polyculture systems all the fucking carbon. Carbon means money for a farmer. The more carbon you have in your system, more money. Right? So it's as I mentioned, they're the uncivilized ones. Because in less than one living person's life, 2 living person's life, they've almost destroyed the planet. I mean, our ancestors maintained that shit for generations, bro. Like, so once again, to me, that ecosystem being maintained, that was a farm, dude. And that's how I want you to think about your land, right? Don't clear it. How can you plant in tandem with everything? Selectively clear, little by little. Use, for instance, in my case, I could use the crow silks, the rabbit brushes. I could use all these plants to start little young agaves at the bases. If I notice around here, as I walk all the goats, all the phacelia, all the gold fields, all that ground cover is growing at the bases of every single little tree popping out, right? Now, there's lots of even dead plants I mentioned that I may take out. Not right away. Why? I'm learning this. Even the dead plants, just their little shade, their little, sticks and shit popping out, They're dead as fuck, long gone. But they're still providing a little microclimate for those ground covers to grow, and it boosts forage up for all the plants, or for all the animals, right? So my goal is here. I'm going to start planting opuntia cactus pads and agave where those dead crops are. I'm going to let my plant eat the dead plant and just grow right there to maintain that little micro ecosystem effect, and I could continue with my shit. Now, this was a long sidetrack there, but I feel like, you know, when I go on these sidetracks in the podcast, pretty important shit. So, going back to the podcast, though, this is Apollo Cacti on Columnar Cacti. The next Columnar Cacti I have to talk about that I've mentioned a lot is Argentine saguaro. So Argentine saguaro, also very valuable collector cactus. A lot of people don't, purchase it because it could be a little pricey. As I mentioned, some of these small specimens, you know, a little like 8-inch motherfucker could be like $30-40. It's crazy, man. You know, some of the large 3-4 footers could be, you know, $300-400, right? And the Argentine saguaro is the same. Pretty much per every foot, I would say it's like starts to you know, like say everything over 3 feet, it starts to be valued kind of roughly at say $100 a foot, $80 a foot. So a 3-4 foot Argentine or Mexican saguaro could be $300-400, right? So a lot of these Argentine saguaros, man, do they grow fucking fast, man. If you plant a 3-4 foot column, right, like one you may buy, as I mentioned, for a little pricey. Well, that fucker, you just water it a little bit with some rainwater. In about 3-4 years, you're gonna have yourself a nice little fucking 15-foot tree with a whole bunch of branches. And then that $300-400 you pay for that branch, you cut off 2 branches. You sell them bitches for $600. Now you're double your money, and you got yourself a productive tree that could give you nice branches you could sell every couple months, every year, at least a few of them, and you're going to have yearly fruit production, right? And look, they ain't going to last forever. The prices on plants, more people cultivate them, price goes down. In the beginning, when you're a new, or when you're farming new crops like that, yeah, you can make a lot of money selling them. But I always tell people it's kind of like a pyramid scam, right? That's kind of how I see agave right now, because all the people making money in agave right now in California, for instance, are selling the plants for other people to grow to make money. That's a pyramid scam, bro. It's like if the only way to make money is to get the next fool in, that's a pyramid scam, okay? Like if you didn't know. And here's the thing. That's okay at the beginning because that's how you grow the industry. But I don't necessarily like that. You get me? Like, I don't sell plants because I'm trying to fucking, get rich or anything. I'm more so trying to develop the industry. But I'm not ignorant to the fact that I'm like, oh, every year I'm going to be selling all these plants for the next 20 years, right? I could, but you're going to have to be adaptive and creative. Start a nursery, fucking market it, vertically integrated. You're going to have to be creative. But just doing it how it is right now, just like anybody that comes into agave in California, they're looking for multi-species. They're coming to me now. There's no one in California that has tens of thousands of multiple species. I know of 3 people that have agave tequiliana and espadín in quantities over 10,000, and they kind of suck because they're all Mexican imports. But the point is, you want some California grown agave, you want multiple species, I'm the only motherfucking option you got. There is a few other options, but they'll be limited to, like, I'll give you an example, right? I love shouting out my boys. You got Doug out there in fucking Ventura County. Doug runs a nursery. He's got, like, if you want to just plant, boom, 5 acres of agave mapisaga, Lisa, that he's got 5,000, you go get them, pick them up today, boom. I know other fools, for instance, Jurassic Palms, down over there in Fallbrook, California, my homie Tony. You want to go pick up fucking 5,000 agave Puri truncata? By the way, one of my best performing agave here in the desert for dry farming, one of the best all around. You go to him, he'll get you 5,000 and get you in connection with people that got 50,000 in between all his homes. Okay? But that's kind of what I'm trying to tell you, right? They may have 1 or 2 or 3 types, but usually a nursery carries, I will say, anywhere from 10 to 100 of a certain agave. So if you're a farmer and you want to go there and get, I need, if you're planting 500 to 1,000 an acre, man, bro, just 10 acres is 10,000 agave, right? Say it's smaller type agaves. You could put fucking 20 or 2,000 an acre, 3,000 an acre. Now some of those may even be more expensive. So say you're planting 10 acres, right? 30, so 10 acres, 3,000 plants, 30,000 plants. Say each one of them fucking plants is $20. That's $60K just to plant 10 acres out. What the fuck are we growing, weed? It's like, dude, like, Fabio mentions this often, but he says, a big reason why a lot of the different species haven't been cultivated is because of their price. And it's true. Like, when I started growing agave Vilmoreana, it was like around $30, something like that, $40, a 5-gal. I've dropped it to like in between $8 to $10 a 5-gal because I've cultivated them. I mean, I got like 250,000 of them bitches right now. But it's like, I cultivated so many of them. And millions of seeds. I've cultivated so many of them that the nurseries to compete with me had to drop their price. I was able to offer bulk, and the nurseries were able to offer small quantities to their clients. Everybody's winning here. Well, I guess not the nursery. They're making a little less. I don't know about that. I'll tell you that back. Because here's the thing. The nursery was selling them at $40. But they might have only fucking sold 10 a month, So say they make 400, and the net on that may be, say, I'll be optimist. I'll give them half, which nobody's pulling 50%, but I'll give them half. Say 2 out of the 400 that they make off those 10 plants, right? Well, if they're selling 100 at fucking 8, that's 800. And if they keep, I'll be modest and say 25% or 50% right there, because they're selling them for much cheaper, right? And say they could sell them for a little markup because they're buying it at bulk, right? So they may sell it at 8, but they may buy it from me much cheaper or whatever, right? So say they're clearing on those 100 plants 300-400. They could be making more just by selling the plant cheaper. So not necessarily that I took sales out there fucking nurseries. If anything, I gave them more sales, but made every sale be a lower dollar amount, but gave them more sales. So they're making more dollars in many cases. And I give the example what that same homie, Tony from Jurassic Palm. It's like, he's got a lot of agave Vilmoreana now, cheaply priced, and people are coming in more and more about it because I'm posting about it, about how it has high saponins, about all these different things behind it, right? And then people know, like, oh man, this is a plant I really want, right? So as I'm trying to bulk sell agave Vilmoreana to farmers, posting about it, talking about it, making articles about it, then people go in and they just want a few at a regular nursery, right? Because they're not going to want to buy 10,000 from Steve or 1,000 from Steve, from me, right? So everybody has their niche, but yeah, all that's just to say, going back to that one point I was trying to make, that the first few years, you could definitely probably get some better prices for the plants, but just expect that the more people that grow the plant, the cheaper it's going to be, and you're going to need to, innovate, right? So it's like, the more people that grew almonds, right, the price of almonds dropped, but then people started making almond flour, almond milk, all this bullshit, right? And then they didn't need to sell their shit wholesale, and they could make a whole bunch of money off that shit, right? So that's how I want you thinking. okay, maybe at the beginning when I'm growing Argentine saguaro, blue myrtle cactus, Mexican saguaro, growing Pilosocereus azurius, Peruvian apple cactus. When you're growing these at first, and you're farming them by the thousands, sure, you may be one of the main suppliers making really good money. But as more people get convinced by you that this is a crop to farm, they're going to come into the space and they're going to want to do what you did. You've been telling them the whole time you're making money off these plants. I'm talking about myself here now, it's funny. But now they're going to want to do what you do. And I've said countless times I've created some of my greatest competition. And I have no problem with it because they're my homies. They're making money. And usually when they grow a plant that I introduced to them so significantly, I just go to another fucking plant. There's so many fucking plants out there, dude. It's like, I give an example. If somebody's growing so much fucking Argentine saguaro, then I may just keep mine for fruit production, try to make some fruit smoothies or fruit dehydrated fruit candies. That way, I don't even give a fuck about the price of the plant or selling the fruit wholesale, because I've already vertically integrated and making my own money in my own way, right? So don't be a hater when fools try to do the same shit that you did to come up. If anything, give them a little advice, because that shit's not going to last forever. So they got to take advantage of it when they can. But the Argentine saguaro, yeah, extremely drought tolerant tree. Once it's established, pretty much never got to water it again. If you do water it, it'll grow faster. So a lot of these columnar cactus, what I like about them too, which isn't the case with a lot of the prickly pear, is that the more you water them, like if I just have a shit ton of fucking dirty goat poop water and I just want to go water them all, and so I could fill up new waters and stuff, they'll take it. They won't rot and die out on you, and they'll just put out more branches, more fruit, and grow faster, right? And Argentine saguaro is definitely one of those. Trying to think of the Latin name real quick. It's Tershesky, but I forget the first name. Lucastelli. So Lucastelli Tershesky. Hard to pronounce. But this is similar to our saguaro here in the United States. Gets big as fuck, tall as fuck. Nice microclimates. Very cold hardy, actually, too. Even from very young, even from 6-inch plant, I could plant them out in the cold, rainy season, and they establish. From a young age, under 6 inches, I would advise not planting them in the summer as much because they'll yellow out. Spring is alright, but their first 3 months, you don't want them to have extreme heat. Hey, calm down, guys. But generally, as I said, it's taking all the cold I could give it. I know they're cold hardy to 10 Fahrenheit. Maybe potentially lower. As I said, I'm not able to test it, but I have other homies that they've gotten into colder areas and they're growing it with success. So I assume it could be down to 5 Fahrenheit, potentially lower. Everything the Mojave Desert could give, we get down to 14 here. A lot of 40-mile-an-hour winds, very low water, very dry landscapes. Performs very well here. Plant it, like for instance, a lot of these columnar cactus, they do really amazing in a dry farm system if you plant them next to trees that you often might water with dirty goat poop water or whatever when you're changing out waters, because they kind of like that. They don't like being watered like so direct, but if you water like a plant next to them, they'll absorb that water, stay dry when they need to, and get water when they need to. And I've found out they like that a lot when they're young. And not a bad thing to have one of those big old trees going high up above your trees, right? So I'll give you an example. I got a date palm next to Palo Verdes, right? That date palm is going to get 60, 70 feet tall. those Palo Verdes will probably get, capped probably around 40 to 50 feet tall, and that will be my level 2 and level 3 trees, right? So, like a forest, try to think at least of giving your ecosystem 3 levels of trees. The shrubs maybe might be, for instance, blueberries, blackberries, stuff that gets, into maybe a 4 to 8 foot, shrub. Toyon bush is a great California native which does that. These crops, and then you have larger trees like Palo Verdes, or you have your, mesquites, or your, fruit trees like drought tolerant olives. I got some Arbenquina here. I got some Manzanillo here. I got some Mission here. Sevillano here. Really drought tolerant olives. So that will be like your second level. And then your third level could be like your dates, your jelly palm, your wine palm, all these things that give nice fruits, right? Well, in that third level, you can have the Mexican saguaro. You could have the Argentine saguaro, the Peruvian apple cactus even. So a lot of people don't know this actually, but the tallest wild cactus, as I was mentioning, probably Pachysarius pringli, Mexican saguaro. But the Peruvian apple cactus, which is also within that Cereus kind of grouping, so completely different plant, but the Peruvian apple cactus is from, I think it actually might be from the same fucking place, like Argentina. But that Peruvian apple cactus, some Japanese people grew it on the side of a building, and it got over 100 feet tall. So it's the tallest, like, in the Guinness Book for the tallest cactus ever grown. And that Peruvian apple cactus, I tell people all the time, someone's in an area in LA on the side of a building to try to grow one, because, dude, like, if you can crater it to the building, I would almost bet that motherfucker could get like 300 feet tall, 500 feet tall. I don't know what it is about Peruvian apple cactus. That shit is just a monster. That shit is a monster, man. But anyways, yeah, some of those Peruvian apple cactus can have some stability and still be 50, 60 foot trees in your level 3 canopy. Same with the Argentine saguaro, right? So, the other thing too, I will mention behind a lot of these columnar cacti, is that the ground squirrels love the fruits, but they produce lots of fruit. So, they get a few, I get a few, it's all good. But here's the thing, we mentioned a lot of times, but the ground squirrels, I like them. They help them, like, say the ground squirrel takes 10% of your food, right? But they do so much ground aeration for you, and essentially allow you to produce 15% more, right? So it's like, don't look at it as a loss, right? Like, these animals may take a small amount, but they give a lot back, a lot more back, right? And that's definitely the case I've seen with the columnar cacti and these ground squirrels, because they're propagating my columnar cactus all over the farm. That's fucking great, right? They're doing what they do with the Joshua trees. Over 90% of Joshua tree propagation is done by the ground squirrels. So, but here's the other thing. The columnar cactus, by focusing the ground squirrels on those cacti, they're not going for my agave, which is great, because as I mentioned a lot of times before, I don't care if they eat a columnar cactus or an opuntia, because it can regrow, it can adapt, it can be eaten to the ground and come completely back. But an agave just loses the middle 5%, the core, it's fucking done. There's no comeback, man. So I am always searching for what I call trap plants, and those trap plants aren't just being completely consumed by the animals, right? Like, I guess when I tell people trap plant, they think, oh yeah, the animal's just going to come and eat it all, right? But no, not so much. It's the fact that they focus on that plant enough to get away from your other plants, and that plant that they're focusing on to still be in cultivation, right? So you still have it contributing to the farm, which is amazing. So Argentine saguaro, really amazing plant. I hope to see more of its fruit on the market one day. Hopefully we'll be a part of that. But as I mentioned, it's like, it works because I'm in a polyculture, right? So it's like my main production, say I have of all these different prickly pears, I could be selling a whole bunch of those and then tell some of my clients, hey, I got a couple, baskets of garambullo, or of Argentine saguaro fruits, or of Mexican saguaro fruits, or of Peruvian apple cactus fruits, you know. So even though I may not have a crazy amount of them, like by growing a polyculture, all these different plants, you're just creating an ecosystem where your clients are going to be looking for that, right? And when your clients are looking for that, then they're going to be paying good prices, right? So it's kind of like a craft spirits brewery, right? Like I give the example of like Ventura Spirits. Sure, they make a great California agave spirit, but they also make, you know, different spirits involving oranges, and you know, they make they use other different types of native California stuff and in different spirits, and they make vodkas, and it's like, or I'm not even too sure if they make vodka, but the point I'm trying to make is they make all kinds of different spirits, right? So one person may come to them for, say, their orange spirits and leave with some agave spirits newly introduced. So it's like, that's how I can build the repertoire and the anticipation for a lot of these species while I'm building up my populations of them, right? So the last ones I wanted to talk about, maybe even talked about just the main one earlier in the podcast. It's been so long. But is the fruiting trichosariuses that I mentioned I had gotten from that hybridizing dude here in Lancaster, California, when he recycled all his plants to me, or his collection. Well, a lot of those are, you know, derivatives of the Echinopsis pachinoi, right? But they're not original pachinoi. They're already been crossed. They were probably started from seed and crossed, right? And they have names on them, all types of crazy ass names. And some of them just have letters and numbers because he hybridized so many of them that they just, you know, he ran out of names probably, I don't know, you know. But the point is, I've never really seen great fruit on Echinopsis pachinoi. I've seen like some small kind of dime-sized fruits, sometimes maybe quarter-sized fruits, but nothing really too significant to where I've ever been like, yo, I should probably farm that shit, you know? Like the first time I ever saw Peruvian apple cactus and tried it, like, you know, I'm a gardener, so I just ate that shit off the fucking plant. And I was like, damn, this shit would be great to farm. You know, that didn't hit me with the Echinopsis, right? The San Pedro cacti. But when I was in this food's garden, I seen all these different San Pedros with golf ball and Peruvian apple cactus sized fruits. And I asked him, I'm like, dude, what the fuck? I'm like, where did you buy these? He's like, oh, you can't buy those. I made them. And I was like, what? So, of course, I took care of some of the better fruiting ones more than others. Made sure to water them first when there was some rainwater that I collected. And other times when there wasn't any rainwater, the ones that didn't fruit as well definitely didn't make the cut on whether they should be watered or not. But the thing there is that I probably have 20 different hybrids of Echinopsis with those different types of fruits. And oh my god, do they taste fucking great, man. I'm really excited for lots of those to prosper on the farm and to propagate them out. If you don't know, though, as I was kind of mentioning earlier, that San Pedro has some people that, you know, recreate, others abuse, we could say. San Pedro is a weird fucking plant. If you ever try to list a San Pedro cactus on, I give an example, a Facebook, eBay, any of these marketplaces where you may sell a plant or whatever, right? Besides your own website, they'll flag it and just remove it because it's technically listed as a drug. So it's listed almost as if it was peyote, right? Because remember, I was telling you that it's cultivated or it's consumed in the same circles with people consuming ayahuasca, right? Well, this San Pedro cactus, you can't necessarily ship it like you would any agave or cactus that you can fully permitted, get inspected, and ship across the world or whatever. San Pedro cactus, you can't move. It's illegal to move. It's like if you're moving peyote. And the San Pedro cactus, while it's an amazing fucking cactus to grow, to farm, there's all these cool hybrids that are potentially in its DNA that can have large fruits, right? And it's very drought tolerant, and it's very wind hardy. It's very quick to establish and fast growing. Well, it's illegal to move through the United States and globally because it's considered a drug, which is weird, right? Because you could buy seeds, right? You could grow it in California, and then you can sell those all throughout California. And weirdly enough, people put them on trucks and move them across state borders. But if they were ever caught, here's the thing. I've read instances of sometimes, I'm not sure if it's a rumor, probably somebody can fact check it, but I've heard of cases where people have moved them across state lines, say a nursery, and then they're getting all of that stock repossessed and then getting put in jail. So, I'm trying to tell people that just use caution if you ever want to farm San Pedro or cultivate San Pedro, because it's something that potentially could get you into some legal trouble. You just got to be careful, though. I grow it, I cultivate it, and I use it here as forage for the goats. I like the fruit, I eat the fruit. As I said, quick to establish, very drought tolerant, not very cold hardy, though, even those hybrids. But I will say the hybrids have been more cold hardy than the original Echinopsis pectinoides that I have as well, which I don't really care for. I'm not too fond of, to be honest, because of that fruit size. But yeah, just something to watch out for that I didn't know until I started trying to sell the plant, and people were like, "You can't." And I don't know how people get around that. I mean, people definitely just fucking ship it all over. People move it all over. But, I mean, if I seen a bunch of people jump off a bridge, I'm not going to just jump because they jump, And you shouldn't either, because it could get you into a lot of trouble. But locally, that's not such a bad thing, because it's like, if you can't move it so easily, you can't sell it across the state, the branches and stuff, right? Focus on food production, farming. It grows so quickly, it reproduces so quickly. You can fucking have a bunch of, you can have 1 8-foot branch of it, cut it into 8, start 8 new plants. Like, it's so easy to reintroduce someone. Just start farming the fuck out of it. So I got interrupted a bit, but what I was talking about was just how easy San Pedro is to propagate, right? So it's a very drought tolerant, fast growing cactus, and it's just a little hard to move around. But if you're selling it local, not really an issue anyways, like I have been realizing. I guess last two that I want to talk about, this already is a 2-hour podcast, so my bad, but if you're a cactus nerd, won't really care anyways. I mean, I probably listen to easily 10 hours of podcasts a day. 2-hour podcast while you work is no issue. But the two other ones I want to talk about are two Trichoseriuses as well, actually, that have really great fruit and are themselves becoming standouts on the farm. The first one is Trichoserius grandiflorus. So, give me one moment. I'm just feeding the doggos right now. Here you go, guys. So, what I was saying is that Trichoserius grandiflorus, right? I'm not sure on the nickname for that one, but this is one that's providing a lot of really great fruit, and it's also one that's been hybridized a lot. So there's small nurseries in California I know of that they focus only on Trichoserius grandiflorus hybrids, because a lot of them put out really, really showy flowers, and those flowers are directly related to the fruits. So each one may have a different flower when they're hybridizing them or bringing out new ones from seed, but the fruits will all vary as well. So that's kind of the part that interests me more. That's kind of where, the work of other hybridizers sometimes may benefit you a lot, even though you're not working in their space, right? Like, these guys are prioritizing for flower without even realizing that they've been making dozens and dozens of new fruit cultivars. So, and here's the cool part too. Most of those guys hybridizing those cactus flowers don't even realize they can eat the cactus flowers. Like, almost all of those fruiting cactus that produce, like in the case of Opuntia, edible fruits, or in the case of Ceriuses, in the case of these Trichoseriuses, Leucosteles, all of the flowers are edible, even on the Cereus peruvianus, the Peruvian apple cactus. And the flowers, by the way, taste very, very sweet. And, the smell on most of these columnar cacti flowers is extremely wonderful. I mean, Peruvian apple cactus, which is probably my favorite cactus flowers, smell like explosion of pink jasmine, with very diverse, like, that's the closest smell I could kind of, if you've smelled pink jasmine, kind of associate it with. But it's very unique. I don't know what type of chemicals are in it or whatever. But a lot of these columnar cactus, interesting part about them too, pollinated by bats, a lot of them, which is great because the agaves, as we always talk about, are bat pollinated mainly. So if we can have more bats here visiting the cactus, they'll hopefully stay a little longer, because they're like, oh, there's agave here, there's cactus here, there's all these things here, right? So we want the bats to come and stay on the farm, as much as possible to speed up that pollination. But a lot of these Ceriuses, unlike agave, can be successfully pollinated by bees and other types of small pollinators. So while the bats can pollinate them, it's not requirement, right? And that's important, because sometimes these agaves that aren't receiving the required bat pollinators, they're not really putting out any viable seeds, which is a huge fucking issue for their future. But yeah, Trichoserius grandiflorus, really beautiful cacti. It's, I would say, a medium to fast grower. Medium if you're dry farming, fast if you're watering. In Southern California, you could probably water these with the sun we have almost weekly for bi-monthly, and it won't be overwatering. So whenever I have extra rain that I've captured, I can definitely throw a hose down and give them some extra water. But it's not something that I'm required to do, right? So they'll still produce some fruit, but if you want them to be a very, very strong fruit producer, even from young, then just make sure that you're irrigating them, right? And that's why Trichocereus grandiflorus is being sold a lot in big box stores like Lowe's or Home Depot, because it's one of these cactus that people, for instance, when they first get their cacti, a lot of the time are overwatering them and kill them. So a lot of the cacti are not great starter cacti, you could say, for people, but Trichocereus grandiflorus is a great one, because if you just overwater it, it's just going to get fat and grow crazy. So it's not a big deal, right? But other cactus, for instance, Quintia acantha, if you water the fuck out of it, it's just going to like rot and die. Not used to that, right? But I guess it depends, on the watering levels too a bit. But so Trichocereus grandiflorus, very drought tolerant cactus as well. It's been cold hardy for me down to 18 Fahrenheit, and I can shade tarp it down to 14. Maybe it could take it by itself down to 14, but I'm not so sure. So I just like them too much to take the risk at the moment, because I don't have so many of them. But another one, like I said, that is a columnar cactus that can get pretty large and produce lots of fruit and produce lots of edible flowers. The actual cactus itself can also be ran through a wood chipper and fed to as forage to all types of animals, right? The wood chipper will break down the spines enough so it can be fed to sheep or cattle, but you can feed it directly just by chopping it up a bit to goats. So that's one I will say that people should be growing in a silviculture, in a food forest, in a market garden, and all of these gardens. This cactus could be very applicable, or even in a polyculture farm like what I'm doing here, right? And it's not like I have crazy amounts of them, because one, people don't really grow them much. They are popular among the cactus, but cactus still is very not, widely, I guess, accepted for everyone, right? So it's like it just hasn't reached the numbers that we need to farm them. Like, I can't go to a store and pick up 10,000 of this Trichocereus grandiflorus, right? I go to Home Depot and buy all the ones they have, which is like 10. Well, I mean, you could probably go to like Outman Plants, and that's probably a place where you could buy thousands of them, right? If you just fucking loaded with money. But again, even buying 1,000 of them, I don't know if I really want to spend 20 grand, right? So I'm trying to get these first ones to put out the fruit, and I'm eating some of them, sure, but most of the seed I'm keeping, and off of one fruit you can get hundreds and hundreds of seeds, and then propagate more of these little guys so that you can have thousands and thousands of them without paying 6-7 figures for the fucking cactus, right? To start that part of your farm. These are also great container indoor plants. A lot of people have them on patios or balconies, and they're very low maintenance. So on top of being low water, so I love putting grandiflorus, in different little small balcony gardens. Like whenever I had to get a client like in Marina del Rey or Playa Vista, that their whole garden space is just a little sometimes 4x10 balcony. They want some showy plants that aren't really high maintenance. Most of these guys are lawyers or doctors or tech folk, so they're not home very much either. It's not like you can put a very demanding garden for them. So a lot of these cacti serve great for those people. Over here hooking up my batteries. Dun, 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 dun. I got a bunch of batteries that I charge up with my solar, but a few of them are small enough that I can move them around and shit. So I pretty much use them as like a generator, but they're small enough, only 20 pounds, that I could carry them all over the farm, you know, if I need to pump water, if I need to have some stuff running in a place away, and I don't want to set up extension cords. It's easy to come grab this guy, but gotta keep her charged. And the small batteries that are movable like that are great backup, like extra battery. So it's like, for instance, right now both my batteries down here on the solar system are at 100%, so I'm taking battery power out of one of the batteries through an AC outlet and putting it in the third external battery, so that that one stays charged up, right? But then that's how I'm able to keep generating power even when I'm at 100, by putting it in another battery. But then eventually I run out of power doing that too. So it's like I just need to keep buying more batteries, because there's a lot of solar power here on the farm that's generated. I forgot the key goats. Give me one moment. So yeah, it's very interesting. But Trichocereus is the general family is so diverse, and there's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of new cultivars and hybrids that have been made within the Trichocereuses. And you know, a lot of the fruiters and stuff, they have a hard time, because it's like I was just explaining to you how the Echinopsis pachinoi, right, is also classified sometimes as a Trichocereus, right? Well, now because of that, there was so many people, you could say, trying to list San Pedro under a different name, that they flagged it as well. So now selling Trichocereus grandiflorus, even though it's never been associated with hallucinogenics or drug culture or any of that, it has the same shit on eBay or Etsy or wherever the fuck you want to sell a plant online besides your own site, that they flag it and think it's a drug. So, you know, once again, you're going to have to be selling local, and you're going to have to be the fruit. Thank God nobody cares about it. So you can definitely ship the fruit and won't have issues with that, or the seeds. But yeah, another Trichocereus, which will be the last columnar we talked today about, is also in the Trichocereus fruiter pool, you could say, that I've really found to be prosperous here on the farm, and that's going to be Trichocereus spaciana. I think that's how you pronounce that. It's Spachiana, the second one, and then first one is Trichocereus. But Trichocereus spaciana, it's one that also not really well known, but among the cactus people, it's well known enough, obviously, to have a nickname already. And its nickname is golden torch cactus, right? Which, once again, this is kind of confusing, because there's a lot of cactus that they call torch cactus, and there's a lot of confusion. So if you look up torch cactus, right, like, there's a lot of different ones that will pop up that is not this cactus. If you want to look up the fruits, look up on Google golden torch cactus fruits, and then if you just Google golden torch cactus, you'll pop it up and you'll see the one I'm talking about. But this guy is also, I would probably say that it's a slow to medium grower, depending on irrigation. So slow when you dry farm it, maybe medium growing when you are irrigating it. And like the Trichocereus grandiflorus, You can irrigate it quite a bit without it rotting on you. Unlike the grandiflorus, a little bit less cold hardy, probably by like 2 to 3 degrees. So like I'm even allowing it to go to 18 Fahrenheit without shade tarping, and all I'm receiving is a little bit of cold damage on the leaves, and they're relatively young plants, so I'm assuming, you know, the new growth is very green and it doesn't really stunt the plant. So I'm assuming that it's going to be much like those Echinopsis and Trichoseriuses that I recycled from that garden in Lancaster I've been describing in this podcast, where you know, over time they will hopefully adapt as they grow and are more mature and established to be something that's not going to be that little or have that low tolerance to the cold, right? And these fruits are going to be a little bit smaller than the Trichoserius grandiflorus. They're probably going to be around the size of the Pilosocerius azurius, and of the in terms of the blue myrtle cactus, it'll probably be about double or triple the size of that one. The good part behind the golden torch cactus is that it produces a lot of fruit. So I mean, even an 8-inch specimen that, you know, gets sufficient nutrients and water could be producing for you, you know, 12 fruit, like a super young cactus, right? And then you can have an older specimen producing hundreds or thousands of fruit. So in its maturity, right? And you know, in cactus, a lot of the plants may be reaching, as I said, maturity in between 10 and 20 years old, even longer before they're getting their prime, you know, fruits. Like Garambullo is one of those, right? Like even a 2-foot blue myrtle cactus may only give you four little fruits. But then, and they're the size of blueberries, how I mentioned. But then you get into when it's like 30 years old, and it's giving like tons of fruit, like literal tons, like 2,000 pounds plus. So it's like some of these cactus, once they reach maturity, have extreme fruit production, and when they're younger, a little bit less. But golden torch cactus, from young, producing a lot, and will only accelerate and grow in the amount that it produces. So that's a really cool one behind that. But yeah, very drought tolerant plant, a little bit less drought tolerant than a lot of the spined columnar cactus, I'll call them. So what I've generally seen is that, for instance, Peruvian apple cactus, a little bit less drought tolerant than Pilosocerius azurius or Argentine or Mexican saguaro. And one thing I've been reading a lot into here in the desert is spines, right? Because I started observing, and I think I've talked about it several times on the podcast, that the spines were having a drastic you know, effect on whether a cactus made it or not. And then I started researching into these spines and realizing that the spines allow like the cactus to catch like humidity and like channel that water towards the base. So it helps with its cam photosynthesis and irrigation, right? And then those spines provide very minuscule shade and also a small microclimate, right, where the wind isn't, you know, drying out the cactus all the time. And so what I realized through my observations, and confirmed through the research, was this, that the spined cactus were much more drought tolerant, wind tolerant, and cold tolerant, and they could be watered less and prosper more. And that's definitely what I'm seeing with everything across the board on the columnar cactus. But the one exception, which is why I'm talking about this right now, has been that fucking golden torch cactus. And I don't really understand it because it's pretty spined. It's but it's not as cold hardy or wind hardy as most of the other columnar. Pretty much is, it's the least of those out of all the ones I have. But it's a very great fruit producer. So I'm hoping some of that wind susceptibility and hot susceptibility will change as that cactus grows over time. But not so sure. We'll see, I guess, is what I can say there, because I'm not so sure, I'm not sure what will happen. Give me a moment here. Now I'm on the next day and I'm taking the goats out. It's funny because this podcast's been going for so long. I started at the end of last day, or yesterday, and then I was putting the goats in at the end of the day, and then now I'm taking them out. I'm dying. But it's because my girl called me, and then I stopped the podcast and completely forgot about it until this morning. But, yeah, so the Trichocereus, or the golden torch cactus, sorry, which is a Trichocereus Fakiana, that is a cactus that has been surprising me because it's been producing way more fruit than everybody at its size. It's been not as drought hardy, or not as wind hardy, not as cold hardy, and I'm just, I'm not so sure whether it's going to do really amazing or be mediocre. So that one is, I still say, a question up in the air whether it'll be really efficient or not. Hey, McQueesley, stop chasing her. When you get tackled, then you can be crying. Huh? Stop it. But, yeah, worth a mention here. So, really great cactus. But, yeah, I guess the general, thing is that columnar cactus could be just as productive as a lot of other plants. They could be farmed. They can be a cool part of silvicultures, of food forests, gardens, polyculture farms. They can do a lot. And they're growing in a whole other space than a lot of the cacti, right? So, a lot of the arborescent cacti, or the ground dweller cacti, they grow, in a certain defined space, whereas these columnar cactus like to grow a lot like palm, as we've been describing, vertically. And what that causes is for you to kind of have multiple farms on one, right? So you can have your columnar cactus farm directly on top of your opuntia farm, planted with your agave farm, planted with your fruit tree farm, or your legume or your nuts, right? So it's like you can stack enterprises. There's no reason you need to have fucking 5 acres of a fruit tree like olive, and then you got another 5 of agave, and everything is monoculture, destroying the earth. Start putting it all on one. Find out what plants work well together, right? Like how we've been describing in all the podcasts, and make sure you're creating an ecosystem farm, not some bullshit industrial farm. And I think you'll be alright, McQueesley! He's fucking McQueesley. Little guy, I taught him how to start herding the goats, and now every chance he gets, he's out there trying to chase the goats, and I'm like, he does the job too good. But, yeah, anyways, get out there and just plant some columnar cactus. That's kind of the reason I was making this podcast, because a lot of these plants people don't really know about. And, today, I mean, as you can see, talking about like 7 of them or 8 of them or whatever, we have been talking for over 2 hours. Like, there's so much to know and learn about columnar cactus, and it's been a huge surprise to me that not more people are farming them. But that's kind of why I talk about it, because we need to start taking some of these cactus collectors out of the collection field, like someone did with me, or I did with myself. I don't know, whatever. and making them into farmers, because many of them have the love for the cactus. So I know they'll grow the cactus well. Many of them already know not to use any chemicals, or that goes against their values. So I know that they'll be great farmers, and I'm starting to see it, right? It's like in California, some of these small dragon fruit farms that are like 10 acres or under, they've been starting up from people that were dragon fruit collectors, and I hope that is transferred over to more plants. I hope that more of these cactus collectors and aficionados end up becoming the farmers, because these cactus have a lot of potential, and we need to start realizing it as a society, that they're more than something to just fucking look at that looks nice. You know what I mean? There's something that could be really an amazing crop to farm. And like I said, it could just be supplemental to whatever you're doing already. They're not going to make you fucking fat money quickly, but, it's like a retirement plan is kind of how I'm looking at it, because many of these will start reaching maturity in decades. So I'll be like 50, 60, 70 by the time that they are maturing, to give their maximum fruit production, right? And that means I'll only enjoy them for a little while before I go. But then my next gen, they're going to have a farm that not many people have of a crop, right? And a crop that produces really good fruit, a shit ton of it, for very low resources, no well water. So even if they regulate the fuck out of all of this bullshit like they're doing in California, which is not bullshit, it's a good thing, to be honest. These agriculturalists have destroyed our aquifers and our ecosystems in favor of quick profits. So, when all that regulation comes, my kids, they won't be tripping about that shit, because we don't even have a well. We're not on city water. We don't use surface water, right? So imagine that. People, they ask me, what's the coolest reason to have solar? Or other people ask me, what's the coolest reason why you started dry farming? And I've always said it's been independence, right? I'm independent from the grid. SoCal Edison will never be able to burn my shit down again like they did in Altadena, because I made my own grid, right? And the same thing, I made my own water grid. I capture all the water that I need for my farm to prosper, and my kids will continue doing the same shit. I don't got no kids, but if I ever do, they're not going to be fucking retard. Shouldn't say that word. They're not going to be fucking dumbasses and be, mismanaging the water like that, So I'm just hopeful that the shit that I'm learning here, somebody will start applying it outside of my family's as well. So that's why I do the podcast. But the point being is that a lot of these cacti species are the next crops, It's crazy to me that most of what is the diet of the world today is really a dozen crops. So it's like we need to start, diversifying it more and more, and growing all the fruits, vegetables, nuts, vines, agave, cactus that we can, so we can have a diverse diet and not put so much pressure on one ecosystem in one way, right? So if you're growing a bunch of agave and cactus the way I am, you're not going to be affecting the ecosystem or the water systems or the air and soil systems. But if you're growing a whole bunch of soy, I mean, there's different ways to farm without destroying the ecosystem. That's just all I'll say. But there's lack of knowledge, and that's maybe why I've been bringing out some of these podcasts. So I'm not the smartest guy with columnar cactus either. Like that guy I was telling you that hybridized a fuck ton in Lancaster. Man, my family's third gen fucking cactus farmers. I sat at this dude's house for like 3 fucking hours just learning about columnar cactus when I went to go get all of those for free. Well, not for free. It took a hell of work. But, obviously pay for gas, truck, insurance. Nothing is free in this life, people. But anyways, when I went to go get those cactus from him and recycle them, I was just learning so much. And you know, just use what I'm telling you today as a primer for you to go get inspired and learn about columnar cactus and how you can implement them in your farm. So yeah, I guess we'll cut it out there, and have a great rest of your day, everyone. Go out and plant some columnar cactus, some opuntia, some agave, some fucra, any of that shit. And as always, if you need any plants, let me know. I'll hook you up. And if you need any consulting, let me know. You know, I'm starting to tell people more that I'm down. Before, I wasn't down to consult for anyone where I couldn't drive to, but now with you know, Zoom and all of these new technologies, I mean, I guess before we had it, right, like Skype and shit, but now everyone knows how to use Zoom. So it's like I'm able to tell the farmers, like, yo, you know, turn on the Zoom and let's go throughout your whole fucking farm, and you know, it's like I'm there, right? But before, you know, with the Google Maps and all that, I just felt it wasn't legit trying to consult for people. But now I'm consulting for lots of different people around the world the past few years. And even if you're not in America, you know, I can help you with your agave or cactus, fucra, sparrow yucca farm, whatever you want. And I think it has a lot more potential outside of the United States, you know. I'm, for my part, thinking that the next frontiers of agave and cactus, once it, you know, goes into America and prospers, I think is going to be Europe and, well, Western Europe and Northern Africa and Central America. So places like Italy, Guatemala, fucking, you know, Ethiopia. I really want to invest in these areas and these type of farms, and I don't necessarily need to be the one that farms it, even if I'm consulting. That's kind of how I see it. You know, I'm investing my time there, and I'm down to help people grow wherever they are. But anyways, yeah, have a great rest of the day, everyone, and I hope you learned something today. Go out and plant some cool stuff, and if you find any cool fruiting columnar cactus, let me know what's up, and that way we can all learn from each other what some of these standout plants might be. I will say, though, try to find plants like what I'm doing, which are columnar cactus that are drought, cold, wind hardy, because we also, like, I know of lots of columnars that produce some good fruit, but they're not cold hardy, they're not drought hardy, and they're not very wind hardy. They basically need to be grown like little Goldilocks plants. That doesn't really help farmers. So what I'm looking for, that I would like people to share, I guess, is you haven't watered a fucking columnar cactus in 10 years, and it's been producing fat fruit for you every year, you know? And you live in fucking Arizona where it gets cold as shit in the winter. You know? That's the stuff we need to start learning from gardeners and applying it on the farm, right? We don't need these plants that are just going to be a repeat of all the bullshit with big agriculture, right? Where they're water-loving plants and we need to only, or we can only have a prosperous crop of them through aquifer destruction. That's not really helpful. But anyways, a lot of shit to learn behind columnar cactus. Hope you learned something today, and have a great rest of your day, y'all. The next podcast, I think, is going to be about some of the trees that I've been putting around my plants, and you know, I'm going to probably start recording that tomorrow or today, and it's going to be on the different leguminous trees that I have, and different reasons why you know, you should probably think about planting some of these. But yeah, have a great rest of the day, everyone. Peace.